My name is Roberto. I'm 42 years old and have been driving for a rideshare company in a major American city for 5 years. Today I'm going to tell you the craziest story I've ever lived. It all started with a late-night ride and a hat left in my car. Inside, it was something that changed my life forever and almost got me killed. If you think you know all the rotten secrets of this country, just wait until you hear what I discovered on that Tuesday morning. The secret was in the hat, and that secret almost destroyed my family. It was 2:30 a.m. on a random Tuesday in a major American city when my phone buzzed. Another ride. I was already thinking about calling it a night. It had been a long day, and my wife Sarah always complains when I get home too late. But hey, money is money. And with the way things are in the country, every buck counts. The pickup was downtown, at one of those fancy high-rises overlooking the river. Strange, I thought. Who orders a rideshare at this hour? From a place like this? Usually people in those buildings have their own cars or a private driver. I arrived and waited. The app said the passenger's name was Amanda. After about 5 minutes, a woman came rushing out of the building. She looked about 35, with her brown hair in a messy bun, big glasses, and a face that looked like she hadn't slept in days. What really caught my attention was the hat she was carrying, a vintage straw hat, the kind you see in old movies. "Good evening," she said, out of breath as she got in the car. "Can you take me to the airport, please? And as fast as possible." "Sure, ma'am. Is everything all right? You seem a little nervous." She looked in the rearview mirror as if checking if someone was following her. "Just in a hurry. Early flight." Weird, right? A 3 a.m. flight? But what can you do? Everyone has their own problems. I pulled away from downtown and headed toward the airport, taking the interstate. Traffic was light, a rare thing even late at night. During the ride, she was on her phone the whole time, typing frantically. Every now and then, she'd look back through the side windows. I'm a curious guy by nature, a flaw or a quality I don't know, so I tried to make conversation. "Are you from here?" "I am, but I travel a lot for work." "What line of work?" She hesitated. "Accounting. I work for big companies, you know? Auditing, that kind of thing." Her voice had a tremor that didn't match the answer. "I've driven plenty of executives, and they usually speak more confidently about their jobs, but hey, to each their own." When we got to the airport, she paid through the app and hopped out quickly. "Thanks, Roberto," she said, reading my name on the ID. "And sorry about being so jumpy, I'm just really stressed about this trip." "No problem, ma'am. Have a good flight." She practically ran into the terminal, and I sat there for a few minutes organizing things in the car before the next ride. That's when I saw it. Her hat, forgotten on the back seat. I picked up the hat to see if there was any identification. It was nice, well kept, seemed like good quality. I felt something inside, like the lining was a little thick. I gave it a light squeeze and realized there was something between the fabric and the leather band. I looked toward the airport, thought about running after her, but by now she must have been through security. I put the hat in the trunk and decided I'd message her through the app later, once I got home. The rest of the night was normal. A few more rides, nothing special. I got home around 5 a.m., to the suburbs where I live with Sarah and my 2 kids, Junior, 19, and Isabella, 16. Sarah was still asleep, so I went straight to the backyard, where I usually sit for a bit before bed to relax and have a cup of coffee. It was there that I decided to take a better look at the hat. Examining it closer, I saw there was a small opening on the inner side, almost unnoticeable. It seemed intentional, like a secret pocket. I slipped my hand in and felt some folded papers. Man, my heart started pounding. I don't know why, but I had a bad feeling. You know when you sense you're about to find something you shouldn't? That's exactly how I felt. I took the papers out slowly. They were photocopies of documents, and just a quick glance told me this was serious stuff. There were contracts, spreadsheets, printed emails, and names, man. Names that any American would recognize. The first document I read carefully was an email between 2 famous businessmen. I won't say the names now, but they're people who appear on TV, in magazines, you know. The subject was about a multi-million-dollar bid for the construction of hospitals in the rural part of the state. And from what was written there, the bid was completely fraudulent. My hands started to shake. There were absurd amounts, offshore accounts, money laundering schemes, and the worst part, names of politicians involved. People I had voted for, that I trusted. I picked up another document. It was a detailed spreadsheet showing how public money was being siphoned off. Overpriced projects, low-quality materials, shell companies, A scheme that had been going on for over 10 years and involved billions of dollars. Billions, man. Money that should have gone to healthcare, education, security. Suddenly, I understood everything. Amanda wasn't a normal accountant. She was in the middle of this plot, and these documents were the proof of it all. She had fled, and for some reason she was keeping these proofs in the hat. My stomach turned. I held the papers with both hands, feeling the weight of it. It wasn't just paper. It was proof that our country had been getting ripped off for years right in our faces. And now I knew everything. I looked at the sky, which was already starting to get light, and thought, Roberto, my boy, you just got yourself into a whole lot of trouble. But I had no idea what was still to come. I stayed there in the backyard until sunrise, reading and rereading those documents. Each page I turned was a punch to the gut. There was so much filth in there I could barely process it all. The scheme worked like this. Shell companies won multi-million-dollar bids to build hospitals, schools, roads, but the projects either never materialized or were done with third-rate materials. The money left over went straight into the pockets of those involved. And the names, my God. There were state senators, big city mayors, businessmen who appeared on Sunday talk shows. It was a giant network of corruption that stretched across the whole East Coast. Sarah woke up around 6:30 a.m. and came to find me in the backyard. Roberto, what's going on? You didn't sleep? I looked at her, my partner of more than 20 years, mother of my children, and I thought, how do I explain that I had just discovered something that could change our lives? Forever? It was a strange night, Sarah. A passenger left some things in the car, and you're sitting here looking like it's a funeral over some lost things. She knows me too well. I decided to tell her everything, but slowly. Sit here next to me. I showed her the papers. Look at what I found. Sarah has been a teacher for 15 years. She's really smart. Just a quick look at the documents and she understood the gravity of the situation. My God, Roberto, it's proof of large-scale corruption. Billions of dollars siphoned off. Now what? What are you going to do? That was the million-dollar question. What do you do when you discover a secret that could bring down half the government? I don't know, honey. I really don't know. The kids woke up and came down for breakfast. Junior is in his second year of law school at the state university, and Isabella is in her last year of high school. A simple life, a working-class family. We've never been in trouble. During breakfast, I tried to act normal, but Sarah kept looking at me with a worried expression. The kids didn't notice anything, thank God. After they left, Junior for college and Isabella for school, Sarah and I were alone. Roberto, you have to hand this over to the police. To which police, Sarah? Look at the names here. There are people from every party, every sphere. Who's to say the detective who receives this isn't involved too? Then give it to the press. What if the journalists are also being paid off? Or if they kill the story before it comes out? We fell silent, processing the situation. It was a terrible feeling, having proof of the biggest corruption scheme I've ever seen, but not knowing who to trust. I remembered Amanda, the passenger from the other night. I tried to message her through the app, but it gave an error. I tried to call, but the number didn't exist. Strange, right? Around 10 a.m., I decided to go out to work. Life goes on, and we need the day-to-day money. But I put the documents in a folder and took them with me. I didn't feel safe leaving them at home. The first ride of the day was easy, an old lady to the mall. But on the second ride, I picked up an executive downtown, and when he got in the car, my blood ran cold. Good morning, I'm going to the financial district, please. He was one of the names from the documents. Michael Turner, director of one of the companies involved in the scheme. A guy in his 50s, an expensive suit, a gold, watch. The kind of person you see and just know has money. During the ride, he was on the phone the whole time, speaking softly, but I could hear some parts. Problem solved. She won't bother us anymore. Documents are secure. My hand was sweating on the steering wheel. Was he talking about Amanda? And what documents were those? When we got to the destination, he paid and got out. But before closing the door, he looked me straight in the eye and said, "Thanks, Roberto. Have a good day. And be careful out there, it's getting dangerous to walk around with things that aren't ours." My blood ran cold. How did he know my name? Yes, it was on the car's ID, but the way he said it, with that smirk, it seemed like he knew something. I sat there for about 5 minutes trying to decide what to do. Was it my paranoia, or was he really threatening me? I decided to go home for lunch and talk to Sarah, but on the way, I noticed a black SUV following me. Every time I turned, it turned. When I stopped, it stopped a few blocks back. My heart pounded. I made an unnecessary loop around the neighborhood to be sure, and the car continued to follow me. I couldn't see the driver's face because of the tinted windows, but there was someone in the passenger seat. I pulled into a dead-end street and stopped. The black SUV stopped too, but no one got out. We stayed there for about 5 minutes in a kind of psychological standoff. Then it backed up and drove away. I got home shaking. Sarah noticed right away. "What's wrong now, Roberto?" I told her about the executive on the ride and the car that followed me. "That's it. You're going to stop with this story and hand those documents over to the first police station you find. What if it's too late? What if they already know I have the papers? Then we leave. We'll take the kids and go to my sister's place in another state until this blows over. Flee? And abandon our life here? Roberto, what life? If you die, what life will we have?" The afternoon passed in a tense atmosphere. I couldn't work properly. I kept looking in the rearview mirror all the time. I came home early, something I never do. During dinner, we tried to act normal in front of the kids, but Junior noticed something was wrong. "Dad, you're acting weird today. Did something happen?" "It's nothing, son. Just tired." But inside, I knew that nothing would ever be normal again. I had become the keeper of a secret that could change the country. And from the first reactions I had, that secret didn't want to be discovered. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Amanda, if she was alive, if she had reached her destination. And I wondered, why did she keep the documents in the hat? Why not in a folder on a thumb drive in the cloud? The answer came the next day, and it almost cost me my life. On Wednesday, I woke up with a bad feeling in my chest. You know when you sense it's going to be a difficult day? That's exactly it. Sarah had left, early for school, and the kids had also gone. I was alone at home, having coffee and trying to decide what to do with the documents. That's when the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw 2 men in suits standing at the door. One was tall, thin, with dark glasses. The other, shorter and stocky, had a face that meant business. "Who is it?" I asked without opening. "Good morning, Mr. Roberto. We're from the IRS. We need to talk to you." "The IRS?" My heart pounded. I've never had a problem with taxes. I've always paid everything correctly, even if it was little. "Can you show me some ID?" They showed some badges through the crack in the door. They looked real, but I was so nervous I couldn't even read them properly. I opened the door, and they came in without ceremony. "You work as a rideshare driver, right?" asked the taller one, who introduced himself as Agent Smith. "Yes, for 5 years." "And have you declared all your income?" "Of course. I have an accountant. Everything's in order." The shorter guy, who was named Johnson, was walking around the house as if he were looking for something. "Don't you think it's strange that a rideshare driver can afford to own a house and have 2 kids in private school?" "The kids don't go to private school. And I bought this house with my 401k and a mortgage." "Oh, really?" Smith took out a folder. "According to our information, you've had a significant increase in assets in recent months." That made no sense at all. I could barely pay the bills every month. "What increase? You must be confusing me with someone else." "Roberto Silva, Social Security number 123-45-6789, correct?" The SSN was right, but the information didn't match. "Look, Roberto," Johnson said, getting closer. "We know you've been messing with things you shouldn't. Documents, information, things that can bring a lot of trouble to you and your family." That was it. I knew they weren't from the IRS. "I don't know what you're talking about." "No? Then why is there a folder with confidential documents in your car? How did they know that?" "My car was in the garage, locked." "Look, buddy," Smith continued, sitting on my couch as if he were at home. "You seem like a decent guy, a family man, a hard worker. It would be a shame if something happened to you or your family." The threat was direct. I felt the blood rush to my head. "Are you threatening me?" "Come on, Roberto. We're just talking." Johnson smiled, but it was a cold smile. "We want to help you. You got into a complicated situation by accident, right? You picked up some things that weren't yours." "I found a hat forgotten in my car." "Exactly. And the hat wasn't yours. Neither was what was inside it." They knew everything. "But how?" "We have a proposal for you," Smith said. "You hand over the documents to us, we forget this ever happened. And on top of that, you get a little money for the trouble." "How much?" I asked. More to buy time than out of interest. $50,000 in cash. That was more money than I saw in a year. But there I knew that those papers were worth much more than that. What if I don't want to? The two looked at each other. Roberto, you have a 16-year-old daughter, right? Isabella, student at Thomas Jefferson High School, leaves the house every day at 7:15 a.m., takes the bus on the corner. My vision went dark. They knew my daughter's routine. And your son, Junior, studies at the State University. Always carries that black backpack, likes to stop at Joe's bar after class. Stop it, I shouted. Stop that. We don't want anything to happen to them, Roberto. They're young. They have their whole lives ahead of them. It would be sad if I couldn't control myself anymore. I lunged at Johnson, but Smith held me back. Calm down, we're just talking. Get out of my house now. Okay, Roberto, we're leaving. But think about our offer, okay? $50,000 is a lot of money. And, most importantly, your family will be safe. They got up to leave. Oh, Johnson said at the door. You have until Friday to decide. We'll be back here at the same time. And Roberto, don't bother going to the police. Half the detectives in this city are our friends. After they left, I stood there in the living room shaking. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about my family. I called Sarah at school. Sarah, can you come home now? Roberto, I'm teaching. What's wrong? It's urgent. Please. She must have heard the desperation in my voice because she said she'd find a substitute and come home. While I waited, I called Junior. Dad? What's going on? You never call in the morning. Son, where are you? At school. Why? Don't leave there alone today, you hear me? When you go with a friend. Dad, you're scaring me. What's happening? I'll explain later. Promise me you won't leave alone? Okay, Dad. I called Isabella's school and made up an excuse for her not to go. Out during recess. When Sarah arrived, I told her everything about the visit from the fake agents. Roberto, that's it. You're handing these documents over today. To whom, Sarah? They said half the police are involved. Then to the press. And what if they kill the story? What if the journalists also? Then the internet. Publish everything on social media. And then what? Are we going to live on the run for the rest of our lives? We argued there until noon, not reaching any conclusion. What I knew was that I had 2 days to decide between $50,000 and the safety of my family, or doing the right thing and risking our lives. That afternoon, I couldn't work. I stayed at home, watching the street, waiting for the kids to come back. Every car that passed sent me into a panic. Isabella arrived first, complaining that I had called the school. Dad, you're acting like a lunatic. It was just a concern, honey. Junior arrived around 6 p.m., accompanied by 2 friends from college. At least he had followed my advice. During dinner, we tried to act normal, but the atmosphere was heavy. The kids noticed something was wrong, but they didn't press. At night, after they went to sleep, Sarah and I stayed up talking in the kitchen. Roberto, no matter what you decide, I'll support you. But think carefully. Is it worth risking our lives for some corrupt politicians? Is it worth letting them steal billions while people die waiting for a hospital bed? It's not our responsibility, Roberto, but it became ours, Sarah. The moment I opened that hat, it became our responsibility. I stayed up late, looking at the documents for the 1,000th time. Every name there represented years of thievery, of money that could have saved lives, built schools, improved hospitals. But it also represented the uncertain future of my family. On Thursday, the last day before the deadline, I made a decision that would change everything. I woke up on Thursday knowing it was the most important day of my life. I had until noon on Friday to make a decision that would affect not just my family, but maybe the fate of many people. Sarah left for work worried, making me promise I wouldn't do anything without talking to her first. The kids also went to their studies, and I was left alone with the weight of that decision. I picked up the documents one more time. They weren't just papers. They were proof that our country had been looted for years. Hospitals that were never built, schools that only existed on paper, roads that turned into potholes right after inauguration. I thought about my mother-in-law, who died in the hospital waiting line for a surgery. I thought about my kids' friends who couldn't afford a private college. I thought about how many families could have had a better life if that money hadn't been stolen. But I also thought about Isabella going to school every day, about Junior fulfilling his dream of being a lawyer, about Sarah who worked so hard to get our own house. Around 9 a.m., I decided to do something I never thought I would do. I called a journalist. David Chen was an investigative reporter I admired. I've always seen him on TV exposing corruption. taking on the powerful. If there was someone I could trust, it was him. I got his number through a friend who works at a local radio station. My hand was shaking when I dialed. Hello? David Chen? Yes, who's this? My name is Roberto. I'm a rideshare driver here. I have a story for you that might interest you. What kind of story? Corruption. A multi-billion-dollar scheme involving public works in the country. Silence on the other end. You have proof? I have documents, contracts, spreadsheets, emails, stuff that shows everything in detail. Where did you get this? I told him the story of the hat, of Amanda, of everything that had happened in the last few days. Roberto, this is very serious. If it's true, we're talking about the biggest corruption scandal in recent years. I know, and people are threatening me because of it. Can you come to the newsroom right now? I need to see these documents. I can, but I'm afraid they might be following me. Then let's do something different. Do you know the Central Downtown Mall? I do. Meet me in the food court at 11 a.m. I'll be at a table in the right corner wearing a blue shirt. Bring everything you have. I hung up with my heart pounding. I had just crossed a line of no return. I picked up the documents, put them in a plain folder so as not to draw attention, and left the house. On the way to the mall, I kept an eye on the rearview mirror, but I didn't see anyone following me. David was there at the appointed time, a man in his mid-40s, thin, graying hair, glasses. He looked exactly like what he was, a serious journalist. Roberto? That's me. We sat at a secluded table. I showed him the documents, and I saw his eyes light up as he read. My God. Roberto, this is pure dynamite. Do you have any idea of the magnitude of what you've discovered? I do. And I'm aware of the danger too. These names, they're very powerful people. People who won't think twice before harming you. I know. That's why I need your help. David spent a few minutes analyzing the papers. Roberto, I'll be honest with you. Publishing this story is going to stir up a lot of important people. There will be lawsuits, threats, maybe even assassination attempts. Are you sure you want to go through with this? And you? I'm a journalist, Roberto. I was born for this. But you have a family, a stable life. Is it worth risking everything? The question that wouldn't go away. David, do you have kids? I do. 2 girls. And what kind of world do you want to leave for them? He smiled. You're right. We agreed that he would verify the authenticity of the documents with his sources, and if everything was confirmed, the story would come out on Sunday on his show. But Roberto, until then you need to go into hiding. These people don't mess around. Where will I go? What about my family? I have a cabin by a lake near a town called Pine Hollow. You can stay there with your family until the story comes out. And after? After you become a national hero or a national target, it will depend on how things unfold. I went home with a mixture of relief and terror. I had made the decision, but I still didn't know if it was the right one. Sarah came home from work and I told her everything. She was silent for about 5 minutes. Roberto, are you sure? I am. And you? If you are, I am. In the afternoon when the kids came home, we called them into a serious talk in the living room. Guys, you're going to think what I'm about to say is strange, but we need to travel tomorrow morning. All of us. Travel where, Dad? Junior asked, suspicious. To a cabin by a lake near Pine Hollow. We'll stay there for a few days. But Dad, Isabella complained, I have a test on Monday. Honey, your test is the least of our problems right now. I had to tell them a summarized version of the story. I saw the fear in my children's eyes, and it broke my heart. But I also saw pride. Junior, who's studying law, was the first to support me. Dad, you did the right thing. I would have done the same. Isabella took longer to process, but in the end, she also agreed. If it's to help the country, Dad. That night, we quickly packed our bags, just the essentials. I arranged with David that we would leave at 5 a.m., even before the fake agents showed up. I barely slept. I kept thinking if I wasn't making the biggest mistake of my life. But every time doubt hit, I remembered the numbers on the documents. Billions of dollars stolen from the American people. Friday, 4:30 a.m. I woke up to the alarm and my heart was already pounding. It was the day of truth. Sarah was awake too. We had barely slept. We spent the whole night, whispering, going over the plan, trying to calm each other down. Are you sure this is it, Roberto? It's past time to be sure, honey. Now we just have to move forward. We woke the kids up slowly. Isabella grumbled but got up. Junior, who's more of an early bird, soon got excited about the adventure. At 5 a.m. sharp, David arrived in a silver SUV. He looked like he hadn't slept either. "Everyone, let's go quietly and not draw attention," he said as we put the bags in the trunk. "The cabin is a couple of hours from here, a little isolated." We left the suburbs still in the dark. The city was asleep and traffic was clear. But even so, David kept an eye on the rearview mirror the whole time. "Anyone following us?" I asked. "Doesn't look like it, but with these people you never know." We took the highway heading north. The kids were asleep in the back seat, and I was talking softly with David. "So, did you manage to verify the documents?" "I did. Roberto, you have no idea what you've discovered. I have sources in the FBI who confirmed it. This scheme has existed for over 10 years. They were already investigating, but they didn't have the concrete evidence. And now they do. Now they do. The story I'm going to do will bring down at least 3 governors, a dozen mayors, and about 20 businessmen." The weight of responsibility fell on me again. It wasn't just about me and my family anymore. It was about the future of the country. We arrived at the cabin around 7 a.m. It was a simple but comfortable place. A wooden cabin with 3 bedrooms right on the lakefront, isolated with no nearby neighbors. "You'll be safe here," David said. "There's food in the fridge for a few days. The internet works well. And most importantly, no one knows about this place besides me." "How long will we stay here?" "The story will air Sunday night. Monday morning, the whole country will know the story. After that, you'll be protected by public opinion." "And what if we're not?" David looked at me seriously. "Then we'll have to improvise." He left at noon, taking a copy of the documents. We stayed there, the 4 of us, in a strange cabin, waiting for our lives to change forever. The first day was strange. The kids were a little lost without their routine. Sarah tried to maintain normalcy, preparing lunch, organizing things. I was restless, pacing back and forth. On Saturday, the anxiety increased. David called in the morning. "Roberto, change of plans. The story is going to air tonight on the national news." "Why?" "We discovered that they know you passed the documents to the press. It has to be now, before they try to stop it." "How did they find out?" "I don't know, but they did. Stay there in the cabin. Don't leave for anything." I hung up with a tight feeling in my chest. They knew. But how? Around 2 p.m., Sarah was in the kitchen when she shouted, "Roberto, come here quick." I ran to see what it was. Through the kitchen window you could see the dirt road that led to the cabin. There was a black SUV stopped down there, half hidden behind some trees. "How long has it been there?" "I just saw it." I called the kids. "Junior, Isabella, come here, slowly." "What's wrong, Dad?" "There's a strange car down there. Let's all go to the back bedroom, away from the windows." That's when I realized the cabin only had one way out. If they came up, we would be cornered. I called David. "David, there are people here." "What do you mean?" "There's a car on the road watching the cabin." "Shit." "Roberto, listen. There's a trail behind the house that leads straight to the lake. Grab only the essentials and get out that way." "And after?" "After, you walk along the lake to the town. There's a hotel called the Lakeside Inn. Talk to the owner, Mrs. Miller. Tell her you're friends of David. She'll take care of you." "How much time do we have?" "I don't know, but don't wait." We hung up. I looked at my family, all with scared faces. "Guys, we have to get out of here. Now." We only grabbed our backpacks with the essentials. Sarah put the medicines in. I grabbed the original documents I had brought, and we went out the back of the cabin. The trail was narrow and a little steep, but in 15 minutes we reached the lake. We started walking along the shore, away from the water so as not to leave very visible footprints. "Dad, how far is it to town?" Isabella asked, already tired. "About 2 miles. Hang in there, honey." We walked for an hour under the strong sun. Junior helped his sister. Sarah was worried but firm, and I kept looking back, expecting to see someone following us. We arrived in town around 4 p.m. The Lakeside Inn was small, very simple, right on the lake. Mrs. Miller was a lady in her 60s, white hair, a welcoming smile. When we said we were friends of David, she didn't even ask a question. "You can stay in room 5 in the back, more private." We settled in quickly. The room was small but clean. It had a TV, airy, conditioning, and most importantly, a direct exit to the back street. At 8 p.m., we turned on the TV for the national news. My heart was pounding so hard I thought the others could hear it. The story was the second piece of news on the broadcast. $1 billion corruption scheme revealed with documents obtained by the report. I saw my story being told on national television, the names I had read on the papers appearing on the screen, the billion-dollar figures being explained by the reporter. Sarah held my hand. "You did it, Roberto." But I knew it had only just begun. At the end of the story, the anchor said, "The FBI has already initiated Operation White Hat, with arrest warrants against the main people involved in the scheme." Operation White Hat. I liked the name. My cell phone rang. It was David. "Roberto, did you see?" "We did." "Now what?" "Now you're heroes. Or targets. Or both." The Sunday dawned differently. I woke up knowing that our story had changed forever. I turned on the TV early and all the stations were talking about the scandal. Operation White Hat. Largest corruption scheme. Rideshare driver reveals bombshell documents. My name was on the lips of the whole country. David arrived at the hotel around 9 a.m. accompanied by 2 FBI agents. "Roberto, I want you to meet Agent Johnson and Agent Miller. They came to ensure your safety." Agent Johnson was a serious man in his 50s. He greeted the whole, family with respect. "Mr. Roberto, first I want to congratulate you on your courage. Second, to inform you that from now on you are under official protection." "Protection how?" "Escort, safe house, everything you need until the main people involved are arrested." "And how long will that take?" "The arrests began last night. We already have 15 people in custody, including the businessman Michael Turner, whom you met." I remembered the man who took my ride, with that fake smirk. "And the fake agents who threatened me?" "Also arrested. They were private security guards hired by the group." I felt a huge relief. At least they couldn't threaten us anymore. "Agent, can I ask a question?" "Of course." "How did they find out that I had passed the documents to David?" The agent looked at the other. "Mr. Roberto, unfortunately there was someone on our team leaking information. We found out yesterday. He was also arrested. Corruption, even in the police force that was investigating." Corruption. The business was more rotten than I imagined. During the morning, my phone didn't stop ringing. Journalists, TV shows, people wanting to interview the hero of the hat. But the federal agents advised me not to talk to anyone until the operation was completely over. Around 11 a.m., Junior called me. "Dad, you have to see this." He was holding his cell phone, showing me social media. "Look, Dad, Hat of Truth is the most talked about topic on Twitter. And look at these comments." I read some messages. "Roberto Silva, thanks for having the courage to do what the politicians don't. This rideshare driver is more honest than a lot of politicians out there. This city can be proud of this hero." But there were also people criticizing. "Driver who thinks he's a detective almost screwed up the state's economy. Now investments will flee because of a snitch. Roberto Silva destroyed jobs." Sarah saw my worried face. "Roberto, don't listen to that. There will always be people complaining when someone does the right thing." But I kept thinking, did I really do the right thing? How many people would lose their jobs because the companies involved would go bankrupt? How many projects would stop? Agent Miller noticed my concern. "Mr. Roberto, can I say something? I've been working on this for 15 years. I've seen a lot of corruption schemes, but I've never seen anything of this magnitude. You didn't destroy jobs. You saved the country from continuing to be robbed." In the afternoon, David came back with bombshell news. "Roberto, we found out who Amanda, the woman with the hat, was." "Who was she?" "Amanda Jenkins, an accountant for the main company in the scheme. She discovered the irregularities and decided to report them. But when she tried to contact the FBI, she found out that there were people from the FBI itself involved. That's why she kept the documents in the hat." "Exactly. It was the only way to keep the evidence safe while she looked for someone to trust." "And where is she now?" David was silent for a moment. "Roberto, Amanda died." I felt a punch to the stomach. "How?" "Car accident on the highway. On Wednesday morning." "Wednesday? The day after she left the hat in my car. Was it really an accident?" "Officially, yes, but you think it was murder. The investigation is still open." I was silent, processing the information. Amanda had died because of the same documents that I had now handed over to justice. She had paid the ultimate price for the courage to expose the corruption. "David, do you think if I hadn't handed over the documents, she would still be alive?" "Roberto, don't think like that. Amanda died because she decided to do the right thing, just like you did. The difference is that you were lucky to find honest people to help you." That night, we had a family dinner at the hotel. Mrs. Miller made a delicious chowder, and for the first time in days, we were able to relax a little. "Dad," Isabella said, "I'm proud of you. Why, honey? Because you did what you had to do, even knowing it was dangerous. Junior agreed. Dad, in law school we study a lot about ethics, about doing the right thing. But in practice, it's difficult. You showed us how it's done. Sarah smiled. You two will grow up remembering that your dad was a man of integrity. For a moment, I really felt like a hero. But the final consequences of our decision were still to come. Monday arrived with more surprises. I woke up to Agent Johnson knocking on the room door. Mr. Roberto, we need to talk. We found out something important. I went down to the hotel lobby, where he was with two other agents I didn't know. What is it, Agent? Last night we arrested the last person involved in the scheme. A guy named Joshua Perry. The name didn't mean anything to me. And Joshua confessed everything, including details about Amanda's death. I felt my stomach tighten. It wasn't an accident, was it? No, it was murder. They found out she had copied the documents and tried to get them back. When she wouldn't say where they were, they killed her and faked the accident. I was silent, trying to process. Amanda had been murdered for doing exactly what I did. But there's more, Roberto. Joshua told us something that might interest you. What? Do you know someone named David Roberts? David Roberts? The name sounded familiar, but I couldn't remember from where. I don't know. Maybe. Why? According to Joshua, David Roberts was the main accountant of the scheme for about 15 years. He created the whole system for siphoning off money, but he disappeared in 2008 and no one ever heard from him again. And what does that have to do with me? The agent showed me an old, slightly faded photo. When I saw the photo, I almost fell off the chair. It was my dad. That's my dad, I stammered. Your dad's name was David Roberts? It was, but he died when I was 12 in 2008. The agents looked at each other. Roberto, your father didn't die. He entered the witness protection program. The world spun around me. My dad, alive? What do you mean? In 2008, your father discovered that the corruption scheme was going to be investigated. He went to the FBI and offered his cooperation in exchange for protection. Since he knew everything, we accepted. But to protect you, we faked his death. Faked his death. You lied to my mom. To me? Roberto, it was the only way to keep everyone safe. If they knew your father was alive, they would use you to get to him. I stood there, trying to process 15 years of lies. My mom had suffered so much from her husband's death. I grew up without a dad because of a farce. And where is he now? In Chicago with a new identity. His name is John Smith. He works as an accountant for a small company. Does he know about me? My family? He does. We keep him informed, but from a distance. He knows you got married, that you have kids, that you work as a rideshare driver. And why are you telling me this now? Because with the end of the operation, there's no more danger. Everyone involved has been arrested. Your father can go back to a normal life. Does he want to see me? The agent smiled for the first time. Roberto, he hasn't talked about anything else for 15 years. I went up to the room, stumbling. Sarah immediately noticed something was wrong. Roberto, what's with that face? I told her everything. About my dad, about the fake death, about him being alive in Chicago for 15 years. Sarah was in shock. My God, Roberto, your dad is alive. He is. And he wants to see me. And you? Do you want to see him? That was the million-dollar question. 15 years of anger, of resentment, of longing. How do you process all that? I don't know, Sarah. I really don't know. We called the kids and told them too. The reaction was different. They were excited about the idea of meeting their grandpa. Dad, we have to go to Chicago, Isabella said. Yeah, Dad. Imagine you grew up thinking you didn't have a dad, and he's been alive the whole time, Junior added. But I was confused. On one hand, the happiness of knowing my dad was alive. On the other, the anger of knowing my mom died without knowing the truth. David arrived at the hotel around 2 p.m. So, Roberto, did you hear the news about your dad? I did. Now what? Now you decide. Do you want to see him? David, can I ask you a question? Of course. Did you know? When you reached out to me, did you already know who my dad was? David was silent for a moment. I suspected. When you showed up with the documents, I thought the coincidence was strange. A rideshare driver with the same last name as the missing accountant, finding exactly the documents that were missing to close the case. Do you think it was a coincidence? I don't know, Roberto. Maybe destiny has its ways of settling the score. In the afternoon, Agent Johnson came with a proposal. Roberto, we've arranged a flight to Chicago for tomorrow. Your father is anxious to see you. And my family? Everyone can go. In fact, it would be good. Your father wants to meet his grandchildren. Sarah looked at me. The decision is yours, Roberto. I thought about the whole story. The hat, the documents, Amanda, the threats, the escape. And now discovering that my dad, whom I thought was dead for 15 years, was alive and had been a fundamental part of the same scheme that I helped bring down. It couldn't be a coincidence. Okay, we're going to Chicago. That night, I barely slept. Tomorrow I would see my dad again after 15 years of separation. Tomorrow I would find out what his voice was like, if he had changed, if he still liked football. And most importantly, I would find out if I could forgive him for letting me believe he was dead. Berkeyamagr, Tuesday, 10 a.m. Chicago O'Hare International Airport. We got off the plane and were met by 2 local federal agents. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would explode. Mr. Roberto, your father is at the hotel. We'll be there in half an hour. During the ride, I was silent. Sarah held my hand. The kids were anxious to meet their grandpa, and I didn't know what to feel. The hotel was simple, but comfortable, right by the lake. We went up to the 5th floor, room 507. The agent knocked on the door. John, they're here. The door opened slowly, and there he was. My dad, 15 years older, all white hair, a few extra pounds, glasses I didn't remember him wearing. But it was him. Roberto was all he could manage to say. We stood there looking at each other. 15 years of longing, anger, resentment, love, all mixed up in one single moment. It was Isabella who broke the silence. Grandpa? My dad looked at her with tears in his eyes. My little granddaughter. From then on, it was a whirlwind of emotions. My dad hugged his grandkids, greeted Sarah, and finally, hugged me. Roberto, my son, you've grown so much. I smelled his scent, the same cheap aftershave he used when I was a kid. And for a moment, I went back to being the 12-year-old boy who lost his dad. Dad? Why? Why did you lie? Sit down here, son. I'll explain everything. We spent the whole afternoon talking. My dad told me how he discovered the corruption scheme, how he realized he was going to be arrested along with the others if he didn't do anything. Roberto, I wasn't a thief. I was an accountant. I did my job. But when I realized the extent of the thievery, I couldn't be a part of it anymore. And why didn't you report it sooner? I tried, but back then the corruption reached even the FBI. There was no one to trust. So you faked your death and abandoned us. My dad bowed his head. It was the hardest decision of my life, but it was the only way to protect you. If they knew I was cooperating with justice, they would use you and your mom to get to me. My mom died, Dad. She died without knowing you were alive. I know, son, and that kills me every day. Sarah, who was listening to everything, asked, Mr. Roberts, did you never think about coming back? About telling the truth? I thought about it every day, but the agent said it was still dangerous, that there were people at large who could recognize me. And now? Now everyone has been arrested, thanks to my son. My dad looked at me with pride. Roberto, when I found out you had found the documents, I didn't believe it. It was as if destiny had closed the circle. Do you think it was a coincidence? I don't know, son. Maybe Amanda chose your car on purpose. Maybe she knew who you were. How would she know? Amanda was an accountant, just like I was. We met a few years ago when she started getting suspicious of the scheme. I advised her on how to gather the evidence. You knew her. I did. And I knew that if one day she needed help, you would be the right person. Everything started to make sense. Amanda hadn't forgotten the hat by accident. She had left it on purpose, knowing I would find the documents. Dad, she's dead. I know, son. And I blame myself for it every day. Why? Because I was the one who taught her to keep documents in unusual places. It was my idea to hide the evidence in the hat. The circle had indeed closed. My dad, who had fled the scheme 15 years ago, had indirectly put me in the middle of the same story through Amanda. In the late afternoon, we went for a walk on the lakefront. It was strange walking next to my dad after so long, but little by little, things started to go back to normal. Junior and he were talking about law. Isabella wanted to know everything about his childhood. Sarah was asking the practical questions: where he lived, how he was doing financially, if he was in good health. And me? I was trying to forgive 15 years of absence. Roberto, he said when we were a little alone, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. Dad, I grew up without you. My mom raised 2 kids alone, working herself to the bone, and you were here living another life. It wasn't easy for me either, son. Every day I thought about you all. Every Christmas, every birthday, I kept wondering how you were. But you didn't come back. I couldn't. They made it very clear. If I left the program, you were in danger. I stopped walking and looked at him. Dad, did you do the right thing back then? I did. And did I do the right thing now? You did. Then maybe that's what the Roberts family does. The right thing. Even when it hurts. My dad smiled, and for the first time in 15 years, I felt whole again. That night, we had dinner together at a restaurant by the lake. My dad got to know his grandkids better, told stories about my childhood, and little by little, we became a family again. So now what, Dad? What's going to happen? Now I can go back home if you want. I can see where you live, be a real grandpa. And your job here? I can find a job anywhere, son. You only have one family. On the flight back home on Wednesday, I thought about everything that had happened in a week. A late-night ride had changed our lives forever. Amanda had died for doing the right thing. My dad had lived 15 years away from his family for doing the right thing. And I had almost lost everything for doing the right thing. But in the end, the truth had prevailed. The corrupt were in jail. The stolen money was going to be returned to the public coffers. And I had found my dad again. The secret was in the hat, yes. But it wasn't just about the documents. It was about courage, about doing the right thing, about how sometimes destiny puts the right people in the right place at the right time. We arrived home on Thursday afternoon. My dad came with us to see our house, our neighborhood, our life. When we entered our neighborhood, he looked out the car window and said, "Roberto, you've built a beautiful life here. We tried, Dad, and you succeeded." In the following days, my dad adapted to our routine. He slept on the living room couch, woke up early to have coffee with me, helped Sarah with the chores. Little by little, he became part of the family again. The interview started the following week. Everyone wanted to hear the story of the hero driver. I appeared on national TV shows, on local news. I always told the same thing, how a simple forgotten hat changed our lives forever. Last month, I received a letter from the Department of Justice. It was signed by the Attorney General, Mr. Roberto Silva. In recognition of your civic courage and fundamental contribution to the fight against corruption in the country, we have the honor to inform you that an indemnity of $200,000 has been approved for the risks faced during Operation White Hat. $200,000. Money I never dreamed of having. Sarah wanted me to stop driving and open my own business. Junior suggested a tourism company, taking advantage of the fame. Isabella thought I should invest in their education, but I decided differently. With part of the money, we renovated our house. We made a room for my dad, enlarged the living room, fixed up the backyard. With the rest, I created an education fund for my kids and still had some left to save. And I continued driving for the rideshare company. "Roberto, are you crazy?" Sarah said. "With all this fame, you could be doing anything." "Honey, I like driving. I like meeting people, hearing stories, and most importantly, I'll never again ignore if someone leaves something in my car." Today, 6 months after all this, our life is back to normal, or almost. Junior is in his 3rd year of law school, already interning at the Attorney General's office. He says he wants to be a prosecutor, to work in the field of fighting corruption. Family tradition, he jokes. Isabella got into college for journalism. She wants to be an investigative reporter, just like David, who became a family friend. Sarah got a promotion at school. She became a director, and she's implementing a civic education project with the students. My dad went back to working as an accountant at a small office in the neighborhood itself. Every late afternoon, we sit in the backyard to talk and have coffee. 15 years of conversations to catch up on, but we're making up for it little by little. And me? I continue driving through the city, picking up rides, hearing stories, but now with an eye always on forgotten hats, abandoned bags, anything that might hide another secret. Because I learned one thing in this whole story. Sometimes the right thing to do appears in the most unexpected way. And when it appears, you have 2 choices. Ignore it and go on with your life, or have the courage to face the consequences. I chose to face them. And although it was the most frightening period of my life, it was also when I felt most proud of who I am. Last week, a passenger left a wallet in my car. Inside there was $500 in cash. I ran after her, gave everything back. She was so surprised she gave me a $50 tip. "How are there still honest people like this?" she asked. "There always have been," I replied. Sometimes it's just a matter of having the opportunity to show it. In the end, the secret wasn't just in the hat. The secret was in the courage to do the right thing, even when everything seems to be conspiring against you. And that secret, folks, is within the reach of any of us. Every day, on every corner, in every small or big decision, we have the chance to choose between the easy and the right, between complicit silence and the courage to speak the truth. Amanda chose to speak. My dad chose to report. I chose to hand over the documents. And you? What choice will you make when the opportunity appears? Because one thing I can guarantee, it will appear. Maybe it won't be a hat with corruption documents. It could be wrong change at the supermarket, a colleague being harassed at work, a politician lying on TV. But it will appear. And when it does, remember our story. Remember that a common driver from a regular American city changed the fate of billions of dollars simply by doing the right thing. Remember that the secret to changing the country is not in any politician, not in any revolution. The secret is in the courage of each one of us. And sometimes that secret is hidden in the most unexpected place you can imagine. So folks, what did you think of this story? Would you have done what Roberto did? Sometimes we think we can't change anything, but look how one courageous decision can transform everything. If you like this story, just imagine how many other incredible stories are out there, waiting to be told. 6 months after Operation White Hat, 47 people were convicted of corruption, including 3 governors, 12 mayors, and 23 businessmen. The total amount recovered reached $8.7 billion. Roberto Silva continues to work as a rideshare driver in his hometown. Amanda Jenkins was posthumously honored as a heroine of transparency by the Office of the Comptroller General. The hat where it all began is on display at the FBI Museum in Washington, D.C., in the wing dedicated to the fight against corruption. The story of the driver who changed the country became a book, a movie, and inspired dozens of people to report corruption schemes across America. Because sometimes the secret to changing everything is in the simplest place you can imagine. The secret is in the hat.